This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
I'm Emma Keeling in central London, where a company is harvesting insects which they say could revolutionise farming and help the planet.
And I'm Shanice O'Mara in London to find out more about Formula E and how some technologies are harvesting water from air.
By 2050, the global population is expected to reach almost 10 billion. Demand for food could rise by 60%, further impacting already depleted land and oceans. Just like us, the animals we eat need protein. Around 40% of global crop calories go towards animal feed, with the two main sources coming from fish meal and soy. How can we sustainably meet the world's needs on finite resources while protecting the environment? Flies, bugs and creepy crawlies, we kill them without a second thought. But what if insects are the answer to greater sustainability, deforestation and food shortages? Maybe you should put that fly swat down and come with me. Oh, and I should warn you, you're about to see wriggling, writhing larvae. It's pretty gross.
N-Cycle's mission is a simple one, to sustainably feed the world using the power of insects. Black soldier flies are one of nature's key recyclers. There is no such thing as waste in nature, and with a black soldier fly facility, we take in food waste, convert that into large insects that we turn into protein meal that we can then feed animals and humans sustainably.
Hello!
Hello, hello, how you doing?
Hi, I bought my PPE, I'm COVID safe. Is it Karen?
Yes, it is.
Good to meet you, Karen.
Fantastic.
Tucked away under the railway arches in London is the R&D office of Untitled. Director Karen Whittaker founded the company 6 years ago. With a background in environmental engineering, he travelled the world as a scuba diver and saw the pressure food production for the human race can have on the environment.
There are two main problems with the current food supply chain. One is that countries like the UK are massively dependent upon imports, so about 80 or 90%, and that's of two key protein products, soya meal and fish meal, which we import internationally from the likes of Brazil and South America, such as Chile and Argentina. That means we're placing huge issues on other countries to produce the food for us. COVID has perfectly demonstrated the problem with this supply chain, with food being caught at ports. The timeline between products being delivered has just massively increased. So what we need is hyper-local, sustainable protein production, and black soldier flies are one of the key solutions to this problem.
Matt Holl is the company entomologist or insect expert. Oh, cool little office space.
Yeah. And this is the insectary. This is where we keep all of our insects. This is where the magic happens.
I bet. This is your office, Matt. Whoa! What? Is that the insects? That is nasty.
Yeah, so they're eating the food that we're feeding them. So beer grains and coffee are kind of what you're smelling right now. That's what they're eating
That does
today.
not smell like beer grains and coffee. It's quite acidic and it smells a little bit like poo. Despite the smell, Matt was drawn to Entocycle's vision, which aligns with how he wants to lead his life.
In previous entomology type jobs that I've had, they involved spraying lots of harmful chemicals to try to kill lots of insects in remote parts of the world. And I wanted to sort of keep my work a bit more local and try to solve the food waste problem that we're seeing in the country that I live in.
So the black soldier fly larvae, they're the ones that have to do all the yucky work. They have to eat all the waste. Now, warning, we're about to show them to you, and they're very wriggly and a little bit gross. I told you so, but you need to get used to them because they could play a big part in our food future. But anyway, back to the flies. Around 2,000 black soldier flies get on with the business of breeding, which is their sole reason for living. Soon after, they die.
We let the flies mate and lay eggs for about 6 days. You can see the wooden egg traps we have on top of that rotting stuff. That just makes it easy for us to collect the eggs when they do lay them.
And did you think about using other insects? I mean, mealworms are used quite a lot to feed animals, aren't they?
Mealworms need dry, high-quality food stock, whereas we can feed these black soldier flies. They can process any waste from what we feed, which is human food waste. They can eat meat. They can also eat manure and develop that way. So we can feed them almost anything and get a high-quality protein source out at the other end.
There's no need to tend pastures or grow crops. Food waste is picked up from the local cafes and breweries. Steph Rogers then puts it through a mixer, and the final product will be mixed in with the larvae. But like any dad, Matt must wait for the eggs to hatch in the nursery, or cupboard in this case.
So 24 to 48 hours after we've taken the eggs, they'll hatch out into the food here. So we place them on these hatching platforms.
Yeah.
If you look closely at this one here, maybe at the end of the mesh, you can see really, really tiny, what we call neonatal larvae, the larvae that have just emerged from the eggs.
The black soldier fly, or Hermetia illucens, has a rapid life cycle. Once the eggs have hatched, the larvae live for 3 to 4 weeks before they begin to pupate, and 2 weeks later they emerge as flies. But for protein production, the larvae are harvested and processed after 2 weeks. Oh, this is it. This is where they just grow.
Yeah.
In these racks.
That's right.
It's a very sustainable, fast food development with a tiny carbon footprint that can be set up anywhere, which is why the food industry is sniffing about.
Right at the beginning, it was quite difficult because the idea of breeding billions of flies, on the face of it, looks quite, crazy. But actually, it's now become mainstream. Media are talking about it, supermarkets are engaged with this, feed companies need it. I think COVID and the kind of greater concept of food security has definitely brought this to attention. So we've seen a massive increase in kind of outreach to people who want a more sustainable future for their supply chains. And it's not going to happen overnight, but the key part here is that we need the technology that enables these facilities to be built. So Entercycle is focused on that key enabling technology so that we can build hundreds, if not thousands, of facilities all around the world.
Next year, Entercycle will build what they hope is the first of many industrial insect protein factories in the UK. Each will contain 5 to 10 million flies on any given day.
So from hatching to harvest, the larvae will actually grow about 10,000 times their mass.
Those going on to become flies go into the pupa stage, which is like a cocoon.
In the opposite way that the larvae are photophobic, they try to burrow away from the light, the flies are actually phototactic. They're attracted to the light. The flies actually don't have the ability to eat or gain any energy. All of the energy that the flies have was stored from the larval stage. So we don't want the flies to waste their energy by buzzing around these lights. So we keep them in a dark chamber here and let them emerge as flies in these containers.
Listen to that sound. I mean, that would be really annoying if I was at home, but here it's quite fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Entercycle is planning trials with salmon and is hoping the EU will soon approve trials for chickens. But to satisfy demand in future, they'll need to be delivering 50 to 100 tonnes of insect protein a day. That means perfecting the processes here in the insectary. Each day, Steph harvests eggs from the traps.
This is all about standardisation, so making the process the same every single time, every single day, the same process.
And so how many eggs does each black soldier fly lay?
So a female can lay between 600 and 1,200, around 600, 800 is normal. But what we care is about the efficiency of getting the majority of the females to mate and lay eggs. So with the same amount of eggs hatching, to have the larvae to eat the same amount of food, to produce the same amount of larvae that will produce the same amount of flies, that will then again produce the same amount of eggs. And so it's all about making that process as continuous and as streamlined as possible so that downstream it becomes really easy to produce protein and more flies.
So you're talking about scalability there?
Exactly. So standardisation is fundamental. It's easy to farm insects badly. It's difficult to farm them well and at scale. And so that's what we do here at Entercycle.
Right. And so this is easily scalable?
Yeah, this is fantastically easy scalable.
While humans are terrible polluters, nature cleans up its mess. What's being separated here are pupae and the digested waste, also known as frass or poo. Oh, that's one hell of a massage. So are the pupae all right after
Yeah, they're absolutely fine after this process. As you can see here, they're still fine and moving.
Tell me a bit more about the poo.
So the insect Frass, as what is known, is essentially the leftover digestate. And we've been running trials with universities that have shown that with about a 5 to 10% inclusion of our Frass, we can have almost 100% larger plants.
So I can take some of this for my tomatoes?
Yes, you can.
Right.
Although this is highly, highly sought after. So we're sending this off to multiple partners as well as academics. So this is what it's all about. This is the final product. This is whole, dry, black soldier fly larvae.
Wow, they're not very big, are they? So do you feed them whole like this?
No,
to the animals?
so the reality is we dry them and extract a high quality protein flour. So this meal is what we're going into the animal feed pellets to make the high quality protein that they then need to grow.
Oh. And so, I mean, can I eat this? Is it safe to eat?
Yeah, of course, go for it.
I'm going to give it a try. Oh, it's a little bit crunchy. Oh, it's kind of nutty.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, this is not for humans. I mean, it could be down the line.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, the here and now is to sustainably feed animals, but very much so you can see this baked into pastas or breads or other kind of high carbohydrate products where you can get your protein, you know, without harming the planet.
Kieran is targeting the insects to provide 5 to 20% of fish or animal feed. He says it not only contains the key 12 amino acids that are needed for animals and humans to grow, but it's also hypoallergenic.
Reality is the money investment is going there, the government support is going there, and the interest, just proof in having this conversation with you guys proves that this is going to be one of the key new industries. We won't necessarily need Facebook in 100 years. We will still need to eat, and we'll need to eat sustainably. So this is one of the few companies where I think, you know, you can build a legacy of sustainability and businesses that just do good by default.
You can see more of Razor on our YouTube channel. Search for Razor Science Show and it will take you straight there. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications.
Search CGTN Europe wherever you get your podcasts to subscribe to The Agenda podcast. The Agenda with me, Stephen Cole, always gets to the heart of the story. Just subscribe today and listen now.
Covering the world from 4 continents. A new horizon. Teams in Beijing, Washington, D.C., Nairobi, and London. Who connect, interact, and inquire to bring you the stories that matter to all. The Link, only on CGTN.
Formula E, the cleanest fun you can have on tarmac.
They go green in Mexico City. Evans is through, is he? There's going to be contact. Has Lotterer got through past the Frass? He has.
For the Porsche team, the real race is not just in the arena.
Mitch Evans wins in Mexico City.
The companies that innovate fastest will lead the way in our low-carbon future. Something elite engineers such as Porsche's Malte Huneker understand very well. What's it like for you personally to be part of something like this?
It's a love-hate relationship. I love the pressure, at the same time I hate the pressure. You're basically presenting the result of your work with TV presence. So that's like the ultimate test that you can have for the work that the whole team is doing.
Formula E is entering its 7th season. But can this fledgling but already multi-million-dollar sport match its petrol cousin for power and excitement?
It's a very intense roller coaster.
Here comes Lotterer now, and he goes quickest.
Everything happens in one day. The practice sessions are very, very short, and then comes qualifying. That's like 1, ideally 2 flying laps, and then it's directly the race. So it's super, super intense. And also throughout the race, everything happens instantly. It's very, very short reaction times on anything that happens on track. So for us, it's as intensive as it looks like from the outside.
Why is it so essential to be developing Formula E?
The car industry as a whole is moving towards reducing CO2 emissions, and a big part of that is electrifying all production car fleets. That is mainly being done with the help of battery electric vehicles, so to bring our sports car heritage into the world of electric cars.
And what are the challenges that are different from petrol-driven cars?
First and foremost, that we are dealing with electricity. So we need to make sure that everything is safe. We are dealing with 800 volts, so that's some serious voltage, and we need to make sure that nothing happens. That's the first thing. Then after that, of course, the components are quite different. So we have a battery like everybody has in his cell phone, just slightly bigger in size.
All cars racing in Formula E must use the same chassis and battery by regulation, which encourages teams to concentrate research and resources on components that will increase the uptake of electric vehicles on our roads. Moving the focus away from aerodynamics and battery development. Batteries could also prove too much of a game changer for individual teams.
And we would have a situation, potentially, where one manufacturer or one team would win every race. So that's something where they decided, okay, we give you a standard battery and you can develop everything downstream from the battery to the wheel.
So to increase their racing advantage, the teams must work on developing their powertrains. Essentially, how the power is transferred from the battery to the road surface. A lithium-ion battery supplies a direct current through an inverter to convert it to alternating current. The alternating current is used to generate an electromagnetic field in the motor, which turns fixed magnets on the rotor. This rotation drives the gearbox and then the wheels. Each team arranges the elements of the powertrain in a unique way to optimize their car's performance.
And on top, there comes another challenge, which is driven by the need to manage energy efficiently. And this is software. So we are using a lot the software to help the driver manage the energy and use the energy as lap time efficiently as possible.
This is where some really clever technology is being developed to increase the car's efficiency to its maximum potential, including regenerative braking, which recovers kinetic energy from the wheels to recharge the battery when the car decelerates or brakes.
Would we drive the full race flat out, we would not make it to the end. So it means we have to save some energy while we are racing. So if we can bring the energy from the battery more efficiently to the road, we can drive longer on the straight, we have to lift later, and hence we are quicker.
Will any of that technology that's being developed filter down to an average car?
Obviously, we're not taking the electric machine from our Formula E car and put it one-to-one into the production car. But we are developing technologies, and these technologies can also be used in production cars. And that is true for the hardware, that is true for parts of the software. We can share our knowledge with our engineering colleagues from the production cars and can also help them. The high voltage technology that was first part of the LMP1 hybrid car that was like 800 volt technology, is now something that is part of the Taycan, our first fully battery electric vehicle. That is an example that is easy to show, easy to understand.
Motorsports have long been a way of testing new technologies for manufacturers. But Formula E is also changing perceptions of electric vehicles, which is of crucial importance for an industry that needs to reinvent itself to survive in our low-carbon future.
Incredible race.
It's fundamentally another reason to get up in the morning, go to work and do the best. So motorsport or general sports people are probably very much intrinsically motivated, and all these factors push this motivation even further.
For more science, behind-the-scenes insights, groundbreaking research and even some fun, check out our Razor podcast. Search Razor Sounds on all major streaming platforms, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there. To see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Water scarcity affects 1.1 billion people around the world, and the problem is getting worse with climate change. It's estimated that water stress could displace 700 million people by the year 2030. Atmospheric water is a possible solution. It's a resource equivalent to around 10% of all the fresh water found in all the lakes on Earth. But how do we get that water to the people who need it most? Two scientists have been working on some innovative techniques to pull water out of thin air.
I grew up in California, where droughts were pretty prevalent when I was a child. It serves a personal mission of mine to think about how we can give everybody in this world access to clean water.
Professor Evelyn Wang is a mechanical engineer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Her focus is to harvest water in a cost-effective way by adapting a technology that's been inspired by nature, known as dewing.
Similar to what you see on your cold water glass when you have ice in it. Over time, you start to see a lot of water droplets that condense on the outside of your water glass.
This condensation occurs in what is called the dew point, which is the atmospheric temperature below which water droplets begin to condense and dew can form. The exact temperature of the dew point varies depending on local pressure and humidity.
The way to get below the dew point often is to cool your system so that you can start to condense. And at low humidity conditions, typically parts of Africa or India that have arid kind of climates too, it becomes infeasible because efficiency is so low in this process. You actually have to freeze the water before you can condense it. So that's why it becomes extremely challenging.
Professor Wang's technology has found a solution to this.
In this case, we use an adsorbent, and it's really good extracting water at particular humidity conditions. We can then pack it into an architecture that allows us to kind of maximize the ability to absorb the water from the air. And then we use sunlight as a means to now release the water and then condense it such that you actually don't need refrigeration.
The idea is so neat. Can you tell me a bit more about how it actually works?
So basically, we have a box. On the top of the box is a solar absorber. So it's almost like a black paint. And inside the box, then you have two layers consisting of this absorbent material inside a matrix, so that when you have this box open, the water and the air gets captured onto this material.
The material which captures the water is a type of porous layer in which dust-sized crystals are embedded. These crystals are of a metal organic framework known as MOF 801. As air flows through the box, the MOF effectively grabs the water out of the air. Sunlight then heats the top of the box, driving the water onto a condenser where it cools and drips into the collector. Nearly 2,000 miles away, another team has been immersed in a similar problem. Agriculture consumes more water than any other source, and water scarcity will have a big impact on food production with global warming.
One of the key challenges in the conventional agriculture is as the temperature increases with the global warming, so the water runoff and water evaporation becomes even more significant. So you actually need a more amount of water to be able to irrigate into the system.
Professor Yu is a mechanical engineer at the University of Texas at Austin. His solution is to coat soil with SMAG, or super moisture absorbent gel. And this technology works with a natural dawn to dusk cycle.
So you can imagine in the humid cold night, so you can actually store the water in this gel-coated soil. And then in the daytime, so the water can be slowly released into the plants, so help the plants to grow. So it's really kind of, we wanted to mimic what nature does, like the best. We want to learn from the nature. So the SMAG gel has two chemical ingredients. One of the component is this moisture absorbing gel. Basically, it's a very special type of polymer. They can absorb the water very efficiently from the ambient air. And the other ingredient is this thermal responsive polymer, which actually can release water very effectively just under natural sunlight. So this special part of the SMAG, we actually designed to produce the clean water without intensive energy consumption.
The gel is mixed in a 3-to-1 ratio with sandy soil. Experiments so far have found that the hydrogel soil was able to retain water better, and it needed far less additional water to grow plants.
Are there any environmental implications with mixing the gel in soil? Like, does it leave any sort of residue?
So some of these polymers already being used in biological fields working with the human body. So they definitely will not have any of the negative impacts on the crops. But that actually requires like further long-term analysis because of these special conjugated polymer haven't been used extensively like in agriculture.
The gel mix has the potential to reduce irrigation in agriculture and also expand farming to areas that are currently too dry to farm.
So if you think about the world population continues to grow, I think the ability to grow more food on the previously poor quality or inhospitable land becomes increasingly important.
It's early stages yet, but both teams have clear ambitions for where they see the technology heading.
It doesn't require a lot of maintenance. You just put it on your rooftop. You just rely on the sun. We can probably extract amount of water typical for a single person for a day.
If we can make it to be very cost effective and be widely adopted in the next 5 to 10 years, I think that will be the proudest moment for my personal kind of journey in research.